I remember standing at the altar, gripping my bouquet so tight my knuckles turned white. My stomach was in knots, not because of nerves, but because I was staring at the 2 empty seats where my parents were supposed to be. They promised me they'd come. My mom even helped me pick out my dress months ago, smiling like she was actually happy for me. My dad told me, "Of course we'll be there, sweetheart. It's your wedding." But when the ceremony started, when the music played, when I walked down the aisle, the seats were still empty. I kept glancing at the door, thinking maybe, just maybe, they'd come running in last minute. But they never did. Why? Because I had the audacity to get married before my perfect older sister, Amanda. Growing up, Amanda was everything my parents ever wanted in a daughter. She was smart, gorgeous, popular, captain of the cheer squad, straight-A student, went to an Ivy League school, and started dating a guy from an equally picture-perfect family. Meanwhile, I was the other daughter. The one who played video games instead of practicing for debate team, the one who brought home BS and CS, the one who got grounded for sneaking out while Amanda was praised for being so responsible. I wasn't bad, but next to Amanda, I never really stood a chance. It got worse when we became adults. Amanda got a high-paying job at a fancy law firm. I worked as a freelance graphic designer, which my parents called a hobby no matter how much money I made. Amanda got a beautiful apartment in the city. I moved into a smaller place in a less expensive area, but the biggest thing, Amanda was supposed to get married first. It was just an unspoken rule in my family. She was the golden child, so obviously, she'd have the perfect fairytale wedding before I even thought about settling down. Only, that's not what happened. Amanda had been engaged for over a year, dragging her feet on wedding planning because she wanted everything just right. Meanwhile, I met Jake, fell in love, and within 2 years, we were ready to tie the knot. My parents never said don't do it, but when I announced my engagement, they got weird. "Oh, wow, that's fast," Mom had said, forcing a smile. "Are you sure you don't want to wait a little longer?" Dad had rubbed his chin, nodding in agreement. "Maybe give Amanda a little time to plan hers first. You don't want to steal her thunder, right?" I laughed it off at the time, thinking they were joking. They weren't. The closer I got to my wedding date, the frustier my parents became. They'd make passive-aggressive comments, like, "Oh, we'd love to help, but we are so focused on Amanda's big day." They refused to contribute a single dollar to my wedding, even though they had a whole fund set aside for hers. I should have seen it coming, but somehow, I still thought they're my parents. Of course they'll show up. I was wrong. I tried calling them the night before, just to check in. My calls went straight to voicemail. My texts were left on read. I even called Amanda, who finally picked up just to say, "Mom and Dad decided they don't feel comfortable coming. They don't want to hurt my feelings." I was speechless. "Your feelings?" "Amanda, it's my wedding day." "I know, but they just think it's not fair that you're getting married first. Maybe you should have waited." Waited? Waited for what? For her to decide she was ready. For permission. I hung up. And the next day, I walked down that aisle with those 2 empty chairs staring back at me, and let me tell you, that was just the beginning. The moment the ceremony ended, I felt like I had been holding my breath for hours. The whole thing had been beautiful. Jake looked at me like I was the only person in the world. Our vows were heartfelt, and our friends and his family cheered for us like we had just won the lottery. But despite all of that, I felt the weight of those 2 empty chairs like they were 1,000 pounds each. Jake squeezed my hand as we walked down the aisle together, whispering, "Forget them. We are happy, and that's all that matters." I wanted to believe him. I really did, but as soon as we got to the reception, the question started, "Where are your parents? Are they okay? Did something happen?" I had to smile and lie through my teeth. "Oh, they had something come up last minute. It's fine." Fine. I wasn't fine. I was humiliated. I saw the looks people gave each other when they thought I wasn't watching, pity, confusion, whispers behind their champagne glasses. Even Jake's parents, who had always been warm and welcoming, looked uncomfortable when I dodged their questions. I made it through the first dance, the toasts, and dinner, but when it was time for the father-daughter dance, I lost it. I had told myself I wouldn't care, that it didn't matter, but when the music started playing, and I saw Jake dancing with his mom, saw other brides with their fathers, smiling and twirling on the dance floor, I cracked. I turned and walked straight out of the reception hall, my dress trailing behind me. I barely made it to the hallway before the tears started falling. That's when I felt a hand on my shoulder. I turned around and saw Jake's dad, Mr. Carter, standing there with a gentle smile. "You shouldn't be out here alone," he said. I wiped at my eyes, trying to laugh it off. "I just needed some air." "I know today has been hard," he said, his voice kind. "But if you'll let me, I'd be honored to have this dance with you." I swear, I almost started sobbing right then and there. I didn't even answer, I just nodded, and he took my hand, leading me back into the reception. When the music started again, he held me like I was his own daughter, and for the first time that night, I felt like I belonged. But just when I thought the worst was over, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Amanda. "Mom and Dad are really upset. You should call them and apologize." I blinked at my screen, stunned. Apologize? What the hell did I have to apologize for? I ignored it, but then, another text came in. "They just feel like you disrespected the family by rushing into this. You should have waited. You knew this would make them uncomfortable." That's when it hit me, they weren't just skipping my wedding. They expected me to feel guilty about it. I put my phone on silent, shoved it in my purse, and decided then and there I was done trying to please them, but little did I know, they weren't done with me. The morning after the wedding, I woke up feeling drained. Not because of the celebration, honestly, that part had been amazing, but because of the emotional toll my parents had put on me. I rolled over, half expecting a flood of apology texts from them. Maybe they'd realized how cruel they had been. Maybe they felt guilty, but nope. Instead, I had 3 missed calls from Amanda. I stared at my phone, debating whether to call her back or just block her and move on with my life. But curiosity got the best of me. The moment she picked up, she sighed dramatically, like I was the one who had put her through hell. "Finally," she said. "You ignored my texts all night." I rubbed my temple. "Yeah, because it was my wedding night." "Well, Mom and Dad are furious," she snapped. "They think you were incredibly selfish for doing this without considering how it would affect them." I literally laughed. "How it would affect them? Are you joking? They didn't even show up, Amanda. They didn't feel welcome," she said, like that was some kind of excuse. I clenched my jaw, trying to stay calm. "They were welcome. They were invited. They chose not to come." Amanda exhaled like I was a child who just didn't get it. "They just think you should have waited until after my wedding. You knew I was planning mine first." I sat up in bed, rage bubbling in my chest. "Oh my God, Amanda. I was supposed to put my entire life on hold because you couldn't decide on a damn napkin color." That hit a nerve. "It's not about napkins," she hissed. "It's about respect. They raised us. They supported us. And you repaid them by going behind their backs and getting married first." I wanted to scream. Going behind their backs? What did she think I did, elope in secret? I had a whole wedding, invited them, and they ghosted me. I took a deep breath. "Amanda, let me make this simple. I got engaged. I planned a wedding. They didn't come. That's on them, not me." Silence, then she muttered, "I just think you should apologize." I hung up. That should have been the end of it, right, wrong. A week later, Jake and I were still in our post-wedding bliss, opening gifts, eating leftover cake, and talking about our honeymoon. But then, a notification popped up on my phone. A Facebook post from my mom. She had written a long, dramatic post about how some people in the family had betrayed traditions and disrespected the natural order of things just because they were too impatient to wait their turn. The comment section was a nightmare. A bunch of her friends and relatives were chiming in with crap like, "That's so sad, you raised them better than that, some people just don't appreciate their parents anymore, wow, so disrespectful. Who even does that?" And then, Amanda commented, "I tried to explain it to her, Mom. She just doesn't care." I saw red. I immediately texted my mom, "Are you serious? You ignored my wedding and now you're posting this crap." She responded within seconds, "You embarrassed us. We had to explain to everyone why we weren't there. You made us look bad." I wanted to throw my phone across the room. I made them look bad. These people skipped their own daughter's wedding over something as stupid as who got married first, and they were worried about their image. I typed back furiously, "No. You embarrassed yourselves. You made a choice. Now live with it." Her reply was instant, "Blocked." She blocked me. I stared at my phone, my heart pounding. Then I turned to Jake, who had been watching my face carefully. She blocked me, I said, half laughing at the absurdity of it. He took my phone, read the messages, and shook his head. Good. That one word made something in me snap. He was right. Good. If my parents wanted to act like I was the villain for simply living my life, fine. If they wanted to throw a tantrum because I didn't bow down to their ridiculous, outdated traditions, fine. I was done trying to please them, but I had no idea just how petty they could get, because a month later, Amanda's wedding announcement went out, and when I saw who wasn't invited, that's when I realized just how far my family was willing to go. A month passed. A whole month of silence. And no calls, no texts, nothing. My parents had completely cut me off after I refused to apologize for existing before Amanda's wedding. At first, it hurt. But then, I realized something. I was free. And no more exhausting phone calls filled with passive-aggressive guilt trips. No more being compared to Amanda. No more walking on eggshells, trying to please people who would never be satisfied. For the first time in my life, I could just breathe. Jake and I were happy. We went on our honeymoon, came back, and started planning our future. My in-laws treated me like family. My friends reassured me I had done nothing wrong. Life was good. And then, one afternoon, I was scrolling through Instagram when I saw it. Amanda's wedding invitation. It was everywhere. She and her fiancé had sent out elaborate custom invitations with gold detailing, fancy calligraphy, the whole deal. But the real kicker, I never got one. I checked my mailbox, my inbox, even my spam folder. Nothing. It wasn't just me, either. I called one of my cousins, Katie, who had always been on my side. Yeah, I got mine last week, she said. You didn't? Nope. She was silent for a second. Then she muttered, wow. That's cold. Cold. Cold was an understatement. They didn't just skip my wedding. They were punishing me for having it at all. I should have seen it coming. I should have expected this level of pettiness. But somehow, it still hit me like a punch to the gut. I wasn't just the less favorite daughter anymore. I was being erased. I debated whether to say something. Part of me wanted to just let it go. But the petty part of me, the part that had spent years being overshadowed by Amanda, the part that had been hurt, humiliated, and ignored, decided I wasn't going to stay quiet. So I texted my mom, hey. I noticed I never got an invitation to Amanda's wedding. Was that on purpose? No response. I texted Amanda, you forgot to send me an invite. Left on read. I took a deep breath, furious. Then, without even thinking, I screenshot the invite I had seen online and posted it to Facebook with a simple caption, when your own family makes it clear you're not welcome. Shrug #petty. Maybe. But I didn't care anymore, and oh, did it cause chaos. Within an hour, my post had dozens of comments. Family members were furious. Some were on my side, calling out my parents for being cruel. Others defended Amanda, saying it was her choice who she invited. Then, the cherry on top, Jake's mom jumped in. She wrote, considering my husband had to step in for the father-daughter dance at Up's wedding because her own father didn't bother to show up, I can't say I'm surprised. OP, we love you and you always have a place at our table. My mother-in-law had entered the chat and that was the moment my mom lost it. A few minutes later, I got a phone call. I almost didn't pick up. But curiosity got the best of me. I answered, and before I could even say hello, my mom exploded. What the hell is wrong with you? She screeched. Do you have any idea how humiliating this is? You are making us look like monsters. I laughed, actually laughed. Mom, you are monsters. Excuse me. You ignored my wedding. You're freezing me out of Amanda's. And now you're mad that people know about it. What did you think was going to happen? She sputtered, struggling to find words. Then she changed tactics. We would have invited you, but we didn't want drama at the wedding. We didn't want people asking why things are tense between you and Amanda. I rolled my eyes. So instead of dealing with the truth, you decided to act like I don't exist. She hesitated, and that's when I realized it. They thought I would just take it. They thought I'd cry in silence, feel guilty, and beg my way back in. Not this time. I don't care anymore, Mom, I said, my voice calm. I'm done chasing after people who clearly don't want me around. Her voice sharpened. Oh, don't be so dramatic. I smiled. Enjoy the wedding. Then I hung up, blocked her number, blocked Amanda's, and for the first time in my life, I felt free. But here's the thing about family drama, it doesn't just end, because on Amanda's big day, something happened that I never could have predicted, and it changed everything. I woke up on the morning of Amanda's wedding feeling nothing, and no sadness, no jealousy, no regret. Just peace. Jake and I spent the day together, binge-watching TV, making breakfast for dinner, and drinking wine like we didn't have a care in the world. The best part? I didn't have to force a fake smile for people who didn't care about me, but I had no idea that while I was enjoying my freedom, my family's perfect event was about to implode in the most spectacular way possible. It started with a text from my cousin Katie around 7 p.m, OMG. Check Facebook. Now. I raised an eyebrow. Katie never texts in all caps, I muttered, opening the app, and then I saw it. A live video from one of Amanda's bridesmaids, and the caption, "What the actual hell?" I clicked it. The video was shaky, the camera swinging wildly as guests whispered in the background. The person recording was trying to keep their phone low, but you could still see what was happening. Amanda sobbing. My mother frantically whispering in her ear. The groom nowhere to be seen. I turned to Jake, eyes wide. Something's happening. I kept watching. In the middle of the ballroom, Amanda stood frozen in her ridiculously expensive wedding dress, her makeup smudged from crying. My mom was gripping her arms, looking half panicked, half furious. And then the camera panned to the side, to my dad, yelling at someone. A second later, I realized who he was yelling at, the groom's parents. My stomach dropped. Jake paused the TV, now fully focused. What's going on? I turned up the volume. After everything we've done, you're really going to do this? My dad's voice boomed through the ballroom. The groom's father, a tall, well-dressed man, held up his hands in frustration. This isn't our decision, Greg. It's his. The camera swung again, and suddenly, there he was. Amanda's fiancé. Or, should I say, ex-fiancé, because the dude was not standing at the altar. No, he was standing by the exit, with his bow tie undone, his face pale, and his car keys in his hand. Holy shit, the guy looked like a trapped animal, cornered by my father's rage. He stammered, glancing desperately at his own parents. Then my mom turned on him. You can't just leave. The ceremony is about to start. Amanda, her voice shaking, finally spoke. Are you breaking up with me? Silence. You could hear a pin drop. The camera zoomed in, catching the groom's face as he hesitated. And right then, I knew. He was done. Finally, he sighed and ran a hand through his hair. I can't do this, Amanda. Boom, instant chaos, gasps echoed through the ballroom. My mom screamed. My dad looked like he was about to throw a punch. Amanda broke down completely, sobbing into her hands as her bridesmaids rushed to her side, and the groom, he turned and walked out, just like that, right before the wedding was supposed to start. Jake and I sat there, staring at my phone in shock. Holy shit, I whispered. Jake shook his head, taking a sip of his wine. Damn. I expected my phone to blow up within seconds. But weirdly, my family stayed silent. No calls, no texts, nothing. I didn't hear from Katie again until the next morning, and oh boy, did she have the tea. According to her, the groom had been having doubts for months. Amanda, as usual, had been completely obsessed with the wedding itself, the flowers, the venue, the guest list, but apparently, she had been ignoring the actual relationship and the groom. He had tried to talk to her multiple times, but every time he expressed concerns, Amanda brushed it off. It's just cold feet. You'll feel better when the wedding happens. This is normal before a big commitment. Except, it wasn't cold feet. It was him realizing he didn't want to marry her, and instead of going through with a marriage he didn't want, he made the decision at the last second to walk away. But the best part, Katie leaned in, practically giddy when she said this. Guess where he went right after leaving the wedding? I blinked. Where? She grinned. His ex's house. I almost choked. Shut up. She nodded. Apparently, he never really got over her. He and Amanda had issues, but he kept convincing himself it would get better. Until, it didn't. I laughed so hard I nearly fell off the couch. It was too perfect. Amanda, the golden child, the favorite, the one my parents had worshipped for years, had just been left at the altar, while I was happily married to a man who actually loved me. Jake smirked. Damn. Karma didn't even bother being subtle. Nope, I said, shaking my head. She really went straight for the jugular on this one. Now, you might be wondering, did my parents reach out after this? Did Amanda apologize? Did they realize how ridiculous they had been? Ha 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 ha. No, if anything, they doubled down. A few days later, my mom finally unblocked me. Not to apologize, of course, but to send one single text, "I hope you're happy." Amanda is devastated. If you had just waited, none of this would have happened. I stared at my phone, speechless. I turned to Jake. They actually think this is my fault. He rolled his eyes. Of course they do. And that's when I knew they were never going to change. They would never see me as an equal to Amanda. They would never admit they were wrong. And they would never, ever take responsibility for their actions. So I did the one thing I should have done a long time ago. I blocked my mom. I blocked my dad, and when Amanda finally tried to call me, crying about how humiliating it had all been, I simply said, "Now you know how it feels." Then I hung up and never looked back. It's been almost a year since all of this happened. My parents. Still obsessed with Amanda, still pretending I don't exist. Amanda. Still single, still making everything about her. Me, I'm happier than ever, because for the first time in my life, I chose myself, and it turns out that was the best decision I ever made.